Nice segue, Francine's comments about Paul McCartney and the Beatles. As you all know, New York City is a magnet for artists and musicians and writers from around the world. Has been for decades, not a century or more. Prince writes An Englishman in New York. John Lennon was here. Frank O'Hara, a little bit closer to home, who's up in Massachusetts, is considered like one of the voices representing New York City poetry. So we have a long and distinguished relationship here as poets in New York City with people from other locations. No better representation than our next guest, who is performed everywhere from CBGB's to the Guggenheim and out in Long Island, where I host him at the birthplace. He's been here in New York City since 1972, but originally from Great Britain. Please welcome Max Flagg.
Hi. First thing I'll read is the contribution I made to this excellent anthology that George put together. And I wrote this about when I first got here, which was many years ago, and I was so excited about New York City then. And I'd just come from London, which was just dark, super cold, and the acid was really bad. So I was sort of shaky when I got here, but I was very happy to be here. Anyway, and this is one of my early impressions. Can you hear me, by the way, if I don't hold this up to my face? Yeah. This is called Second Avenue. Also, I want to say the first two characters I mentioned, Benedetta Barzini was this beautiful Italian intellectual who I've only ever seen photographs of. Gerard Malanga is one of the New York poets that actually I kind of liked, and he's still around. Anyway, their names mentioned, just so you kids know. Benedetta Barzini never slept with Gerard Malanga, and she's still furious. He faked the whole romance, all those tender love poems, totally bogus. But he looked utterly glamorous, climbing into a cab on 8th Street on my third day here in this bulging tent of a city. A real live poet, I recognized, even if it was from a Warhol movie, it was just like the movie, a movie about the movie. Everything merged, like day and night merged, walking down 2nd Avenue past the Holy House at St. Mark's, Church of my heart, Church of the Word, cockeyed spire pointing to fierce American skies, crammed with poets and poems that filled my head and blended into the sweet smell of gasoline, the iron roar of 2nd Avenue traffic whirling pell-mell downtown, a metallic symphony of cars and cabs and trucks, injecting pedestrians with that click-click speed city rhythm, that urban throb moving your boots, truckloads of food and furniture shunting and bouncing over the potholes, Chinese, Burmese, Indian restaurants passing in a blur of hieroglyphic neon, cheap jacks and rattlers and shack smoked fish, and the bodies cooling in the funeral parlor, close by Tony's Cafe Deluxe, where we began each day guzzling scrambled eggs off the Formica with the hardcore mulatto ghost ship girls, the chocolate-skinned ambulance dancers. I had the fever for their brown-eyed handsomeness, but they only love girls. Sorry, horrible break. They only love girls, and I wanted to change that. Bevel their edges, reshape their priorities, but they laughed in my face when I tried to get sexy. They were nice, so nice, tall, dark anacondas sipping homemade daiquiris, words flying like sparks as they cracked the Dexy whip, left me tongue-tied and French-fried, dried out drier than Betty Ford. I let the air out of your sandwich, Papi. I tried to emulate their diamond style with the hot white wire of methadone, hoping my goofball stare might somehow shatter hearts when I tottered into bars on those 8th Street platform heels, doubling my sense of elevation. looking for more than a simple kiss, my arm holding a fist and demanding a leg to stand on, a jambon, a whole Polish ham, dripping grease and cracklings as lunch turned into dinner, medulla full of darts and thorns and dirty deeds, not dreamed but done in moonlight and daylight, doorways and hallways, pool rooms and rent parties, broken locks and stand-up cocks, snapshots of a boon world documented in the flare of a flashbulb, Polaroids fanned like cards in a giddy fist. My faux Borsellino still balanced on my head as the shutter clicked, but the hammer never came all the way down. And like Sidney Falco, I love this stinking town. New York, the ever-turning wheel that grinds exceeding fine. I'm surprised we published that. Thank you. Sorry, I originally had some major dental work, so I feel like I have got a bit of a lisp. So if you hear me lisping, I don't usually lisp. So. I can feel my mouth being moving in different directions. This is more of a story, but I put it in poem form. It's another story about New York. Sometimes I wonder why I persist in New York City, especially in the heat of summer, immersed in the reek of Chinatown and its phlegm-coated pavements, enraged by rats nesting in my parked car, the Olympic-sized pool recently installed on the roof of the building next door that has erased my southern view. Then small epiphanies occur that help to explain why I still love New York. A few years ago, when things looked good for a minute, must have been 2008, the election, I was wandering through Union Square, thinking about Valerie Solanas, and my cheap new sneakers were killing me. So instead of walking west to salute the sunset, I hopped a crosstown bus and sat down next to a plump little woman who immediately asked me for change. I said, if you want change, vote for Obama. I thought that was clever, but she was voting for McCain, even though I pointed out what a shitty pilot he was. He crashed 5 taxpayer-funded planes in all. Then I gave her $1 anyway, because what goes around comes around, so they say. It was like putting money in a talking machine. She told me she was possibly related to Charlie Chaplin and the Queen of England, though she didn't explain how. And then she said she'd been in 2 Andy Warhol films, but they wouldn't pay her, even though you can buy the films at Vic Kim's Video, so called because it's owned by a Korean named Kim. Then she gave me detailed instructions on how to get to Kim's Video store by bus. She said she'd called Paul Morrissey 100 times, reciting aloud his phone number and address in case he owed money to anyone else on the bus, maybe. But she couldn't get any money out of him. I asked her name and she said, Jerry, with 1 R. That showbiz spelling tipped me off. I knew who she was. Are you Jerry Miller, the famous go-go dancer who could make her titties go in opposite directions when you danced? Yes, I am, she squawked, loud enough for the bus driver to turn around and give us a side eye. She was shocked that I'd guessed her name, and so was I, because no one ever looked less like an ex-go-go dancer. We cruised along 14th Street, talking about Andy's rise to fame on the broken backs of his superstars, Jackie, Candy, Edie, all dead and gone, and how Valerie ruined it for everyone by shooting Andy over a stupid play. But me and little Joe are still alive, Jerry said with a smile. She was a part of my history. I'd actually seen her perform her mammary twirling act at a loft party on Green Street about 30 years before. In those days, the streets were clogged with trucks picking up bales of rags by day, and the buildings silent in the night, except for little pockets of light on certain floors. And sometimes a wild strain of music might draw you in like a piper's tune, pulling you through the unlocked door and up 5 steep flights of wooden stairs to a vast open loft space filled with noise and booze and sweat and music. The scarred wooden floor vibrating from the weight of dancing bodies, little puffs of dust coming up between the floorboards. And Jerry, part of the plot, got up and twirled her mammaries anti-clockwise, and I was there, exactly in the heart of where I wanted to be. As the bus arrived at 9th Avenue, Jerry stood up and announced their destination. Western Beef on West 16th, best hamburger meat in the city. And this ancient thread of golden memory disappeared into the city's unraveling fabric. That was it. One more point about how I used to love New York so much. And this was just about driving back to New York as quickly as possible. Ring of Stars is called This Must Be the Night. Ring of stars around our heads, waiting for the dance card to ignite the inferno. The Barracuda had twin pipes and a rake rear window where a newly adopted kitten nodded like a toy, an amulet to keep us from all harm. Willie DeVille was on the radio crooning, This Must Be the Night. Jimmy buried the needle and gunned it across the bridge, white walls barely touching the steel plates. Brooklyn on our left, river on the right, sliding black as a snake around the contours of the island, bars shining with the artificial light, women moving like temple dancers, hips and everything curving into yes, mouthing utterances sacred and profane, all of us vibrating like the steel cables that held us suspended in air as the car shot like an arrow into Manhattan's dirty heart. I was a long time ago, obviously. Just one or two more. I stole this concept from a book written by Robert Graves, an English poet, called The White Goddess, and it's about various goddesses. It's really difficult to understand. I don't understand much of it, but I borrowed the format of one of the poems in there called The Battle of Trees, which, the first line is, I was in many forms before I was set free. So I just use that. I was a hawk in Riverside Park, the flame in the lantern that held back the dark. I was a commander of men and ships. Walt Whitman kissed me on the lips. I was fox and leopard, coyote trickster. On a park bench in Wales, Dylan's solitary mister. I was an unredeemed prayer on the killing floor, a broken hinge on the palace door. I was a beggar who hated loud money, the bee that drowned in succulent honey. I was a diamond without a flaw, the pearl that rubbed the oyster raw. I was the man who brought calamity in. I invented original sin. I was a bed of nails, the light that fails, a hangman's rope, a ponytail. Thank you. Yeah, good. You want one more?
Yeah.
I hate that when people say they've got a stack of paper and say, oh, I'll just read 3 or 4 more. Anyway, I do have one more short one. This is where I want you all to be, which is in the now. Watchmen, what is the now? Are we in it? Dreams of envy don't lead to any heaven, and dirt roads only lead to dirt. The finger points a bony nail tonight, hiding from the moon, instead of basking in it like a shark in the wine-dark sea. The ripples making my nipples harder than the rubber of handlebar grips in winter. Somewhere between washing and dyeing, between the sea and the lee of the shore, it's always now and never, never. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Max Black, one more time. Okay. We have one more person to read before the break, and during the break, we're going to hear from our classical guitarist before the second half. But before that, please welcome to the stage another person really born internationally, Bangalore, India, but really came to New York from Columbus, Ohio, I think somewhere in the Midwest. So a lot of surprised me the first time I heard Vijay read in San Antonio was to hear that so many of his poems are about the Midwestern experience growing up in the Midwest. So that's what it is. But he is tried and true Brooklynite. He's been here for 35 or more of his 40 years in New York City. And by the way, he's won a Pulitzer Prize for his work as a poet, 2014. So this is one of our luminaries of the book, and many people who are in the book that you'll know and admire. Please welcome B.J. Seshadri.
Thanks, George, for putting me in this anthology and for this reading. I'm going to read two poems. They're both New York poems. And first one is the one in the anthology. And the second one is a little longer, not that much longer. And I don't think you can love New York unless you can also hate New York. And second one is a monument to my hatred of the city. Because this city has really been, various times in my life, it's really hammered me down. And I walk around looking at its buildings and going, man. It's like that Allen Ginsberg line from America. America, do you remember what you did to my Uncle Max when he came over from Russia? So I have been that Uncle Max. This is the poem that George published. It's called Immediate City. In the 90s, when I wrote it, I was the 1990s, not the 1890s. That would sound. I was working in an office building on Bryant Park. And the work was not congenial to me, but the view was fantastic. So I wrote this poem there. Immediate city, tall and plural and parallel, their buff, excited skins of glass pressed to glass and steel, bronzed by the falling sun. The city's figmentary buildings dream that they are one with the one. Ignoring the office workers trapped inside their neural nets, they orient their ecstasy up past the circling jumbo jets. Older than the rocks is she, across whom their shadows float. A million rivers navigate the necklace of her throat. The light that falls and falls shatters in her million prisons. In one of her million cubicles, a man tunes his inner mechanisms, types an endless memorandum. Time moves slowly, then not at all. A boy and two girls are trading secrets down the hall. And this is the second poem I'm going to read. It's called North of Manhattan. I teach at Sarah Lawrence, which is right over the Bronx border. And they call it Bronxville, but it's actually Yonkers. And there's a road there that goes through Yonkers to the border of the Bronx. It's called Dyer Avenue, and that's where the poem begins. North of Manhattan. You can take the Dyer Avenue bus to where the subway terminates, just inside the Bronx, and be downtown before you realize how quickly your body has escaped your mind, stretching down the tracks on a beam until the band snaps and the body slips free and is gone, out the crashing doors, through the stiles, and up the long chutes, to burn both ways at once down the avenues, ecstatic in its finitude, with all the other bodies, the bundles of molecules fusing and dispersing on the sidewalks. 10 to the 100th power, bundles of molecules are looking at paintings, Bundles of molecules are eating corn muffins, crab cakes, shad roe, spring lamb, rice pudding. Bundles of molecules are talking to each other, sotto voce or in a commanding voice. I agree with you 100%, dog. I looked for you today, but you'd already gone. I've left the amended, restated sublease agreement on your desk. I'm going home now, and you think about what you did. The ear grows accustomed to wider and wider intervals. The eye senses shapes in the periphery toward which it dares not turn to look. One bundle is selling another a playback machine, a 6 square-inch wax paper reticule of powdered white rhinoceros horn, an off-season discounted ticket to Machu Picchu, a gas-powered generator for when the lights go out, a dime bag of Mexican brown. It is 4 o'clock in the afternoon. The sunlight is stealing inch by inch down the newly repointed red brick wall. She comes into the kitchen wrapped in the quilt and watches as he fries eggs. After what just happened, do you want to eat? She says in disgust. Will she or will she not, back in the bedroom, lift the gun from the holster and put it in her purse? The mind, meanwhile, is still somewhere around Tremont Avenue, panting down the tracks, straining from the past to the vanishing present. It will never catch up and touch the moment. It will always be in this tunnel of its forever, where aquamarine crusted bulbs feed on a darkness that looks all around without seeing, and fungus, ear-like, starved for light, sprouts from walls where drops of rusted water condense and drip. Don't say I didn't warn you about this. Don't say my concern for your welfare never extended to my sharing the terrible and addictive secrets that only death can undo. Because I'm telling you now that you can also take the same bus north, crossing over against the traffic spilling out of the mall, and waiting 20 minutes in the kiosk with the Drambuie ad. There, isn't that better? More passengers are getting off than on. The girl with the skates going home from practice will soon get off, as will the old woman whose license to drive has been taken from her. They will enter houses with little gazebos tucked in their gardens, and then, for just a while, the mind will disembark from the body, relaxed on its contoured plastic seat, and go out to make fresh tracks in the snow, and stand and breathe under the imaginary trees, the horsehair pine, the ambergris tree, the tree that the bulbul loves, the nebula tree. Thanks.
So that first half is done. If you enjoyed what you heard, put your hands together for VJ. Max Black and Prince Neighbor, Bob Howard. And now I'll turn you over to Michael Smith, who's going to play something for us, and we'll be back in a few minutes with the second half of our poetry program. Thank you all. gentlemen, put your hands together for my. Thank you so much. We're going to resume with the second half of our reading now. So if you can take your seats, we'll get started. Once again, my name is George Wallace. I'm the editor of this beautiful anthology with so many fine poets here today. Came out in March of 2022. It was on the Amazon.com bestseller list for about 5-6 months. Dropped off a little bit, but now that the semesters are starting, we have a number of universities where people are teaching from this book, so we're seeing some tick up in sales again. So it's been a pleasure to be associated with this from Blue Line Press in San Francisco. So, the publishers, I am the lovely editor. We got to do all the lot of work to make this happen. But I recommend it to anybody. It's a great experience. In our second half, I'm going to introduce 4 or 5 people who are from the book. Starting off with your dear friend Christine Tim, who I first met when I met George Gott, really, at Smalls, the jazz club, the Basement Jazz Club, somewhere in Midtown. I can't remember exactly where it was in Midtown, but it's a beautiful little place, and they're both associated with that, involved in poetry and jazz. I got to know them both and learned about the various manifestations of what they do. Here, she's a CUNY graduate, a native of, a working class native of Quincy. That's how she describes herself. And she did study here, I think here in Brooklyn with Allen Ginsberg and some other cool cats. Now with her PhD, she teaches upstate and not quite as far as Sarah Lawrence, but someplace close to Sarah Lawrence, and is a great advocate for poetry and a fine poet in her own right. Please welcome Christine Tim.
Thanks, George. I wasn't going to read this poem, but Francine did that nice poem about Paul McCartney. So I thought I would do this one. It's called Sleeping with Paul McCartney. Paul is old. He says he's going to please me like I please him, but I don't believe it because he's just so old. The troubled yesterdays of his youth really are far away. So far away, he needs bifocals. I think that's what happens when you get old. Everything telescopes further away, like the corner drugstore, the kitchen sink, a favorite child. When I was in college, Paris was just around the bend. Now it's an ocean away. My parents used to swing. Now they sort of shuffle. My parents used to rock. I want to hold your hand. And they still do, to balance the porch stairs. Paul is old, but when he smiles, I see the old Paul sparking out of the eyes of the new, seductive as ever, and still quite cute. You know I'll always be true, so love me do, Paul, love me do. The next poem I'll read is from the book. Thank you, George, for publishing that. As George said, I'm a graduate of the CUNY Graduate Center, and I had the great fortune of studying with Allen Ginsberg. And in fact, Professor George Gaida, is that where we met? Did we meet in Allen Ginsberg's class? We met before that, but we took the class together. Yeah, so that was an interesting time. And one of the great things about Allen Ginsberg, just one of the great things, was that he used to bring his friends, right, his poets into the classroom. And one of those poets was Gregory Corso. So yeah, so this poem is also called Sleeping with Gregory Corso. But I should say that, you know, I have a book of poems, like it's called the Sleeping with series, which actually George did edit, right? Didn't you edit this book? And you know, I was doing a reading, and one of the students in the audience said, "Well, Professor Tim, kind of busy, right?" But no, I haven't. I had to explain it's metaphor. It's not. I wasn't sleeping for the last hour. people, especially when I got to Sleeping with Walter Whitman, I was like, come on, really? Close to Sleeping with Gregory Corso. I gazelle leap in two-step beats, your rum and coke breath flies fast and deep. 6 flights to Allen's flat, I may need to hug your stocky hand to precipice. You like that? Kneel at my feet, you howl. I will choke you with my charm and set loose the poem I wrote for your curly locks. Hey, in fact, let me grab one now as I'm slowly slipping off my high horse. Allen Post Playboy tale that rolled up St. Mark's program. I yanked from above. We will haul this mad yak to Ginzey's temple in record time, but your shrine hosts newly drawn snapshots, sketch mental notes. I can breeze through your mind in other cool places, sit on your lap while you tell tales of minstrels long ago, beating time with tongue and drum, howling truth into the ears of the oblivious. The sheets are clean, and there is enough rum to drown a shipload of pirates. How can I say no to a man whose twisty antics drive men dizzy, whose unrhymed palaver shoot a gal's knees weak, whose plopped love bomb rattles poet heaven, whose best and only pickup line is his surname? Oh, Corso, I love you. I want to kiss your clank and eat your thunder, put a lollipop in your mouth, carve your name on my bare ass. Corso slept here, track you to Tangiers, 2 thumbs out on the highway to poetic passion. Please don't leave me with Orlovsky. He's weird and his comic books are scary. Wail for Corso is dead. Wail for Corso, wail. But what will we do with your bones and that beautiful tale? The later man. He died in the morning, so we wouldn't have to wait all day for the famous final gasps, the last battle cry, letting us know he's seen a broad sparkly gate or a comfy white cloud or a twinkle-eyed fellow in blowy brown robes. So we waited, chins raised, eyebrows poised. But when he screamed out, "There's backgammon here," the eyebrows fell, knowing he didn't play backgammon, knowing he never liked board games, knowing we'd probably have to wait a lifetime to hear what that's all about. For those of us who have felt the hand under the skirt and kept silent, because the sideward glance, because the strappy heels, because the smiling wife. For those who saw the stuff of man unwillingly, unrequested, and kept silent, because the backstreet rumor, because they didn't get it right, because the sweet girlfriend. For those of us who were pushed down like a trapped rabbit and still keep silent, because the nightmares, because the wide-eyed children, because we don't do that in our family. For those of us who are stalker diplomats, because ladylike, because don't insult, because his mental health. For those of us who ran from the stroking hand but got the A anyway, because so long ago, because a legacy, because his job. So we learned to turn the cheek, we learned to dodge the streets, we learned to run like a squirrel on a wire. We learned to not get stung, go chase the breeze, girls, go do what you please. Catch your breath, get off your knees, show your temper, show your heart, ditch the baggage and the calorie chart, raise the flag and play the part for those of us who trip but do not fall. Because we run, because no napping, because we flirt and don't mean it, because we play dirty, because we bake, because we refuse to iron, because we flirt and mostly mean it, because we win at poker, because kick his ass, because of being our bonnet, because I believe you, because dicks, so what? Because we're so done, because the last word, because the last word, the last word, the last word, because just because. Nothing more. You want like a lighthearted one or like a not so?
Not so late.
Not so lighthearted. Everyone. I wrote this poem for Carla Ray Johnson. She is an artist, a sculpture artist, and she has an installation for the Seance series. So there are different sculptures, and in a free sculpture is two voices speaking to each other. So she asked me to write this poem. It's Audre Lorde, Black lesbian poet, 20th century, speaking to Abraham Lincoln. 1,863 shall be thenceforth and forever free. Free as a daisy in winter, orange koi in a man-made pond, two canaries in a cage, the American way. Michael Brown. Free as an emergency medical technician, sleeping peacefully in her own bed, free from the no-knock battering ram, 32 shots in the dark, rest in peace, Breonna Taylor, Elton John. Dedicated to the proposition that all are created equal, created equal, created equal, equal, a tragic phrase that should be fact, a slogan for its time. Centuries later, still a new idea, triggering rage. America, when will you come of age? Tanisha Anderson, Akai Girl, Andre Hill. Young man of 22 in grandma's garden, one shot for every year of his life because a cell phone is as good an excuse as a gun, but guilt is not a metaphor, and the roses saw everything. Stephon Clark, Ronald Stokes, Manuel Ellis, Nika Nicole Hill, Colbert. We are old when we are young, 20-year dad of one, car air freshener leads to cop stop, leads to bullet of a gun, run, dads, run. Dante Wright, Philando Castillo, George Floyd. Military will recognize and maintain the freedom and do no acts to repress such persons, any of them, in any efforts they may make to be free. The Constitution is an old man, last words crying, speak free. My neck beneath your knee shuts down the dialogue, your skittish military silencing the masses. But I am armed with armed words. Eric Garner, Malcolm X, Andre Dumas, Gabriela Navarez. A high school boy strolling to a 7-Eleven is suspicious. A teenager with a bag of chocolates is suspicious. A hooded sweatshirt is suspicious. A young child playing in the shade of a park tree is suspicious. Do you notice the size or only the color? Your boots in childish blood, my arms not wide enough to hold all of you. You declare that brown men, to be fair, will be sent to armed forces, to garrison stations and forts, and man-made vessels of all sorts. More Black lives for freedom randomly allotted and denied. I wasn't born to be the scullery maid for tragic errors of policy and white male desire, and my dustpan isn't big enough to sweep up the mess left behind. Men not ready to clean their house should not have a house to catch on fire. Kamani Gray, and Tatiana Jefferson, Sandra Bland, Sean Bell, Helen Jones, Jordan Baker, Miriam Carey, Freddie Gray, Chandra Moore, Kamal Flowers, pages longer than any proclamation. Is this your idea? Slave owners earning $300 for each free Black being, putting a dollar value on lives sets the stage for tragedy, leaving the slave community empty-handed. Emancipation compensation, where is my reparation? 40 acres and a mule, some scrub brush in the west, ours salvation is the bulletproof vest. Abraham Lincoln, who gave us a start, but can proclamations open hearts? Living free is a concept, just words to say. Reality, raw gunshot wounds and recoil.
That was Chris Davidson. Davidson. We would now like to bring up to show and compound the range of voices that we've in this anthology. He's also from Queens, but born in San Juan. But I think he came to America at more tender age than Max Planck. He came within 4 months. He came over here to live in New York and has been here pretty much ever since. A total New Yorker, writes in 2 languages. On the board of directors of, has been on the board of directors of the Poets House. So I'm the original advisory board to the Poets House. A distinguished poet and novelist and poet laureate from 2003 to 2007 in Queens, Julio Marzano.
Yes, the first poem I'm going to read is actually very relevant with the conversation about Poets House, because originally when Poets House started, it started in this top floor of this high school for industrial, I forget the high school industrial arts or something, and it was just a room like this full of kitchens where they taught cooking, whatever. So the first poetry events at Poets House were surrounded by kitchens. And then Poets House moved, and it moved to Spring Street. And I went there reading time, first time, and I walked into the building, and just struck me because I'd been there before, and almost why. This is still part of the downtown. It was just basically industrial end, and these were now being turned into lofts, private homes, and other activities, but they were all factories in my motherhood. So it's called Spring Street Subway Station. Maybe the former factory loft where I'll be reading poems is where my mother took me by the hand up these stairs, the packed wooden elevator, 2 rows of women set to sew, threading a full day spool, where some nice passing lady stroked her palm over my hair. Maybe between recited words, machine decibels will purr, my mother's glance leashing her child's wayward roam across a field of tender eyes, flirting with a curious boy, wandered off to see men box panties like his mother wore. Maybe from that industrial space renovated to manufacture art, at 5, my mother steered me around torrential, anxious bodies, countless homebound mothers, everyone, she explained, rushing to hug their children like me, waiting in another woman's care. Maybe I confuse that old address, but not these steps to a train and standing the entire way, back to where windows deceived in every 6 o'clock woman, not the perfection of mother, real in my hand as she rushed, coming for me down the stairs. I have a poem. That poem is from an unpublished book called Far and Heart, but this one is, the next couple of poems I'm going to read are from a book that's about to come out soon, hopefully. It's called The Glue Trap and Other Poems. And this is a very different poem in a way, because it's about New York versus New Jersey in a way. It's called, it's a fantasy. It's called Into the Beyond, New York edition. Maybe death takes us in summer night traffic, jammed up by weaving suicide cabs, a long brake light bleeding on 7, past armor eyelids over store windows, parked trailer trucks and elephants sleep, and high-hemmed hookers' sexual gates, now no attraction to dead tired driver, passing red lights to an endless weekend, not unlike crossing into New Jersey. Or maybe no traffic, the avenue a roll, foot off gas and divine cruise control, the sky a stadium dark blue to capacity. Bright neon strips cry out sad poems as black breezes blow jazz, salsa, rock, performing in air not intended for you, who will never again hang a left on canal or U-turn escape the Holland's deep throat, at whose mouth stands a grim traffic cop, whose walkie-talkie amplifies dead air. Maybe your wax job instantly dulls, your paint fades, your car's model boxes, sparkling carrots of receding nightlife shrink to dim in the rearview mirror, and drops fall from the tip of your nose, never expecting you'd mourn for yourself, dead as a broken, expensive Manhattan. And maybe at the far fluorescent end, as angel agents wave one-way tolls and westbound trucks honk to applaud an afterlife found so close to the city, you exit glimpsing your eternal reward. No tab meals at free parking diners, any room at mirrored ceiling motels where infinite love with one you just met makes you forget the loss that turns on, windshield wipers that wipe off every earthly thought but to forgive everything, even New Jersey's worst drivers, as you enter the garden state of forgiveness. Title on the checkout line said it. This is an old poem I've been renting videos. Some of you look it up. On the checkout line, Saturday night video rental, XXX, adults only, 1975. His stiff left hand a hook, in his right a cassette sleeve absorbs him. Busty the blonde embassy, extraordinary ambassadors of two sexual potentates, undiplomatically visit, front and rear. That choice third, two under his fixed angle left arm, company to penetrate into Sunday. His right-handed cane helped his never-bending left leg shuffle to this line, just ahead of me, unable to avert intruding on him, involuntarily playing every selection a scene, the video of his fantasy. In his packed mansion brain, cassette quality orgies, perfect bodies performed, his perfect among them, not limbs that now pay for all the pleasure to come on this night, thanks to his good right hand. And this is a poem titled The Blue Trap, which is the title poem of the book. It's a regular poem in the sense that I was teaching at Bard College, and I really hadn't lived in the country before. So in my usual way, I like things outside, like lots of breakfast, food, and the next morning I would see something that's eaten part of it. And I realized that the animals were at night, and there was a mouse. And it kept coming around, so I got a glue trap. And I would strongly suggest you don't find that solution for the mouse. It's called the glue trap. This poem was originally, the original poem in this poem, the book of anthology, was originally published in the Poetry Schooner. This was published in publishers. The long-tailed mouse that gnawed a hemisphere into my box of ginger snaps. The dust gray mouse whose dung speckled the kitchen floor and countertop. The mold-puffed mouse whose claws rummaged paper garbage bags, creaking crumpled cellophane. The pointy-nosed mouse, nostrils trembling. The defenseless mouse, cute and sad-eyed, shocked by sudden light. The chomping, big-footed mouse evoking longer-toothed rodent relations. The heaving golf ball fat mouse expecting to run back to digest, sleep in his jagged hole in the wall, has stepped into the glue trap, spent the night defecating, squirming, feet stuck, knees unable to unleash. So now it can only rock desperately, taking dream lunges into the home it will never enter again. This condemned, filth fuzzy tear, this handball of breath, whose snout rested on glue for once and forever, squeaks in my kitchen cabinet, and I, now glued to its dilemma, must recall its tiny rogue feces The disgust it sowed in my food, the half-moon signature of its gnaw, the nightly invasion of its hunger. Forget completely the innocence of its hunger, trapped in my invasion of its life, deserve to be snuffed out mercifully, crushed by a mallet or well poison, or coldly dropped into boiling water, rather than be left suffering for days, gasping for food and the freedom of swift legs. But I had no mallet or poison, nor the stomach to boil it and smell its cooked odor. No means to ennoble my animal role. My paw hurls the shredded prey deep into buzzing forest, where second by second its squeak dissolves in the cosmos. Day's wind, night's rustle, and the ancient hunger of insects. One more. Yeah, it's called speeding. Speeding to teach a class on time. And there's I forgot, it says, it's actually coming from a highway sign that says normal traffic conditions ahead. It was broken in that way. So, in darkening highway rain, a center lane hearse, conducting respectfully, erodes my margin of time. Press metal, change lanes to traffic rigor mortis. Worn wipers painting a blurred, pointless scene. Still life of brake lights, parallel red dotted lines, connecting to what obstructs a flat, a flood, an accident. I was about to swear off ever again, starting late, but motion interrupted, speeds reviving oxygen, only to abruptly halt, steep, be in a beamed, rear-ending clarity, the all white's eyes of the hearse.
Thank you, Julio Maza. We're now going to introduce first the two people who, in addition to being five poets, they are people who do a lot of great work for other poets, and that there's so much to be done in the community of poetry to make things happen. These great opportunities. We'll do various things as poets in our personal and professional lives, which is people that are out there setting up poetry readings and creating venues for poetry and publishing other people's work and not just their own. Are really to be admired and appreciated. I've seen that this person next reader take over stages in Los Angeles, and here in New York, and I've seen her in Paris, of course, but internationally. Cat George is she's really able to take over a world, and she's going to do that for us right now. Please welcome Cat George.
Brought my own mic. All right. I'm going to start with the poem that was in the book, and it's called "I Want to Marvel at the Universe, but All I See Are Bricks." My sister on the West Coast and her husband are going to stay in a tent in Yosemite. 3 days, 2 nights, they're on the way now. They look forward to seeing Yosemite Falls. It gives off so much energy, my sister says, pure energy, and the smell of pine trees and fresh air and the sound of the wind rushing through the forest. She worries about mosquitoes and bears. She does not worry about the stars. She looks forward to seeing millions. I checked the online webcam view of Yosemite Falls. truly majestic. I get distracted by a video of a building getting bombed, then turn off the computer and look out onto Bleecker Street. I do not worry about bears or mosquitoes, and the stars will live on without me. Outside my window, I see brick, 5 stories high, interrupted by windows reflecting the movement below. Streams of people. It's spring in New York City. Pedestrians chatter in the warm sun. A radio broadcast 70s soul. A river of cars and taxis. A siren down 6. A man's laugh. A woman's giggle. I swear, I just heard the sound of a young couple's first kiss. And the smell of the bakery below and cheap perfume and auto fumes and little dogs trotting beside 2 roommates from the apartment around the corner. And there's an energy here, the energy of people and more people with all their loves and jealousy, joys and griefs, dreams and nightmares, worried people and people radiating pure, carefree bliss. People that bite like mosquitoes and rummage like bears, but mostly stroll on by or just wander in the village as they do on Sundays. A Sunday wander in the city of energy. People like pine trees, the wind rushing through them. The sun will set soon in the night and its energy will bustle forth. A neon and a cadence of high heels and high-end sneakers, louder voices and intimate caresses. The dinner crowd, the bar crowd, the would-be romances coupling home to studios in Brooklyn or Chelsea, the East Village, uptown, and somewhere in the night, a dwindling to near silence, punctuated by the occasional roar of an Uber or a late-night lonely drunk. And my sister will see stars in Yosemite, and the stars will live on without me. I have 2 sisters. This one's dedicated to the other one. Awe, or having lived 20 years in New York, awe. Okay. A child laughs and so it begins. A day, a glow, a fortune and joy. Trees embrace your eyes with their magic. Beneath the ground, roots talk to your toes. This is not a rainbow day or a saturated sunset, simply the splendor, a breath, an answer. On days like this, the human voice cracks the air, and each voice, each word, even the most mundane, sparkles because it is full of life. Life, that game of who can breathe the longest. Life, that sudden merging of infinitesimal with infinite, a jigsaw puzzle which for a time sits on display with no missing pieces till the dog begins to sneak a few away. Sky blue, blood red, air the color of a transparent rainbow, endless and limited. Life, where you get a chance to soak your shoes in a puddle or eat a slice of pizza or raise your voice at a cloud and shout, why, 1 minute, then marvel that clouds and minutes even exist. This too is the marvel, and this, and this. Shout a big fat holy wow. Ain't that wild? Ain't that cool? Yes, and yes, and yes, yes. Bounce. Let's talk about renewal. Let's talk about the bounce. When you get that light step, when you meet the street striding high, when negatives seem like a joke, and you wear problems like removable tattoos, knowing they're only as real as they look, and looks can be deceiving. Renewal, when you stare at the sky and shout, why not? Then get started drawing maps showing how you get from where you are now to where you are not now. You pack your suitcase with people who get in your way and throw it out the window. You are not on this earth to be happy or sad or brilliant. You are here on this earth to be you in all your glorious flaws and fat in the wrong places and a tooth or two that doesn't glimmer like a blank piece of paper. Your teeth have lived. You have lived. And turn off the notifications of the mild achievements of others who make you so jealous you'd hold the phone up to a mirror and cry because you didn't look like any of them. You keep going when all you want to do is pack it in and play video games, watch movies, or sleep, sleep, sleep. You keep going when the last thing you want to do is shuffle off to your dull job, cash your lousy paycheck, stare at the walls and try to figure out how to make the stack of bills smaller than the dollars left in your bank account. You don't want a side hustle. You are full, complete, this is me hustle. You want to do the hustle. You want to dance past that pass that everyone sinks into and get your arms around a big fat dose of this life and say, here I am, come and get me. Cracks. New York is starting to get its rhythm back. The flow of the streets springing alive on this picture perfect August evening. People on the sidewalks talk to each other again, not just presumably to their phones. Hints of jazz here and there, and in overheard conversations. Let's meet for a drink tonight. Her son is an actor and an exorcist. Fuck you, I'm not going back to Brooklyn. A suggestion of a charge, a lighter that sparks a bit but has yet to ignite a flame, a car that turns over but won't quite start. What does it take to bring back the jazz when the city has been shut down on its knees, digging graves as feuds grow more ferocious, neighbor against neighbor, a breakdown in neighborhoods, empty spaces around colleges filled not with students but junkies, homeless dealers, rats patrol between outdoor cafes, bold and rabid. Drugs encouraged to pull up stools out in the street a few feet from windows of neighbors trying to sleep. The city is ready, the people almost masked off, cracks on full display. So many still say they want to move. There's no service person to call and fix a city. The city has to repair itself. The city, the people. I think I'll wait it out a month, a year, 2. Meanwhile, I am the jazz of this city. Take a look, give a listen. That sound you hear is my resurrection, sparking a city to life. In this, let me be contagious. One more. This is a fantastic book, by the way. It's full of beautiful sides of New York City. It's like a crystal ball. It's great. This city cathedral. Here in this magnificent city, sunrise and sunsets are our stained glass windows. We live surrounded by massive rivers of holy water. The choir is a jazz band in a basement around the corner. Our pews are subway benches and bus stops. Our altar bodegas where money turns into whatever you need. We measure communion and pizza joints by the slice and sip wine and dive bar happy hours when it's cheap. And the rich are holy spirits we never see. And the saints are everywhere. Cab drivers, bartenders, caretakers guiding the old around town, women pushing strollers that hold someone else's babies, neighbors helping tourists find their next adventure. The saints perform in tiny theaters with tiny audiences. They read poetry in bars and stay for the bands that follow. They ride bicycles and deliver food and dance down sidewalks and subway steps. And you can pretend they've all disappeared because of disease or crime, or just because somebody decided that the world used to be different or used to be better until the liberals ruined it, or the conservatives ruined it, or the media or money or the young or old ruined it. But I'm here to tell you, this city is still a cathedral, and yes, I feel holy right now. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Cat George. Once more, Cat George, please. Thank you. And our co-director at 3 Rooms Plus on Bleecker Street. Produces all sorts of great shows, the Down on Matinee shows, the Charles Bukowski annual reading. Of course, they publish all sorts of poets and people internationally, including Mike Watt, great book of Mike Watt's poems and his musings having canoed around San Pedro. And a rock on tour of estimable proportions, bringing in the voice of the Bronx. Please welcome Peter Karloftis.
Got my condom too. So. Hello, hello. I love this city. This city, you never take the same step. You never have the same view. If you're moving, your life is different. And it's that way all the time. It'll never be different and never be the same. You know, you're always going to be seeing a different side of things. That just keeps you going. I'm going to read the piece from this wonderful anthology first. It's called Momentary, and it's about 3 seconds that are inconsequential. There's nothing really that anyone else could recognize or admire in this. It's about these 3 moments that mean something to words that have come out. So poetry. There's nothing to recognize or admire, just 3 simple little moments. Timing 1, 60th and Lex. I, running late, cursing stairs 3 at a time, because a subway shredded someone, hit the street and heard my name. So I spun around just in time to see Eddie the Bum shoot a peep string down plate glass, fronting patrons, enjoying entrees. And then we talked about it. I came up out of the subway. I was late. Somebody had been run over by the train. And here's this guy, Eddie the Bum, who I went to Central Park once, and he cooked a pigeon. And we ate this pigeon. I mean, it was edible. But there he was. I mean, for some reason, this guy was there, and he was just getting ready to just do this. And he hated society. And he was standing in front of this window. There was a big table eating, and all he wanted to do was vomit on the window. And he got me. He said, "Hey!" And I looked over, and he did it. He vomit ran down the window. And can you imagine sitting there? These 4 people get Eddie the Bum, who eats pigeons in the park, doing this. Why was that happening to me? Why? Only in New York, right? How could this happen? It couldn't, but it did. So, and we talked about that. Timing 2, this one is not so close. Chambers near Greenwich. We was just dancing, mister, and that's a fact. Pow, pow. Walking the streets doing Brando from On the Water, of course, and between bars, and when a hard hat suddenly emerged from an open sewer, pointing and shouting, through a steam cloud, and we was just dancing with laughter. So here we are walking between bars, and I just started doing Brando, and the steam is pouring on the ground. This guy came out from the steam in that moment and started doing Brando with me. Where else in New York City? It couldn't happen anywhere else. And it couldn't happen except in some inconsequential moment. Timing 3, this is the final one. Houston at Broadway. What was I doing driving in the rain? My wipers were useless. The streets all blurred. There was rainwater running through rust holes in the roof when I stopped for a red light because it was expected of me. A wet arm shoved a laminated sign against my windshield. One of those guys, you know, that wipes your window down with a Burger King bag. My eyes went back to the sign. It read, "Due to inclement weather, my business has been temporarily postponed." Expelled, professional lamination. The man was a giant in his field. I rolled the window down, dug out a $5 bill, stuck it between his outstretched fingers, and the rain kept coming down. Where could you be else? I mean, that's the celebration. That's all we have here is a celebration, and sometimes it's misery. You know, sometimes you just gotta celebrate miseries. Who knows what you gotta do? You're just gonna do it. You know, you're just gonna do it. That's the beauty of New York. Never the same step. Where is this one? So I'm gonna read this little one. I thought about sending this one to George, but I'm glad I have that one in there because It's your experience, it's not mine anymore there. And I don't know what you'll find if you were to just read it and not hear me do it, but it's your place. So this one is called, Mike, if you want to try to do something here, I'll work with you.
What's it called?
It's called My Soul to Keep. It's about a kid in the Bronx. No money. All right. I don't know, Mike classical, we might go blues, you know. One of those bluesy classical guys. All right, whoever you want, I'm going with you, okay? You play something and I'll. Okay, good, good. Uh-oh. I got him out here good. My soul to keep. I snuck down the stairs in the quiet of night with a torn, stained pillowcase, stuffed with torn, stained clothes, because I didn't have the rent for the week gone by. So I sat on a bench with my torn, stained clothes and could think of a better place to be. Until I found a car on Fordham Road that seemed more abandoned than me. The side rear window was shattered. Backseat environment. Persistent, here we go. I put my head down on that pillow of clothes, which I left in the car next day to wait. I went off to hustle some food here and there. That was 4 whole days of life, till a friend dropped by to tell me that Richie moved out from Hoops up the block. So if I liked the capital mine, $30 a month. So, enterprising young man that I was, borrowed $1, bought a token, that was 30 bucks. And took the train to Times Square and worked the door of some massage parlor, handing out flyers for $4 an hour, paid cash at the end of each night. Some 12 hours later, I climbed 5 flights of stairs and paid Duke his money. I had a place for a month. Then a few days later, walking down to the park, I saw the car that I'd slept in had its street side smashed in by some drunk driver in the middle of the night. Where I was, wow, that could have been me. Other guys were laughing. It could have been you. But it wasn't. There was luck, but no why. A few weeks later, I watched as they towed off that car down the hill. Then I turned up the street, sighing, well, here goes again as I tackled those 5 flights of stairs. All right, I got one more. I'm gonna skip the short one. I got one more. This is another inconsequential guy. He never really did anything in his life. It started in San Francisco, which is where I want to show this juxtaposition of the different areas. Yeah, you can keep going. I love it. So it's wonderful. Hey, everybody like Michael there? All right. It's similar. You can say kind of the Lindsay thing is great. Yeah. I have to turn the page. Okay, I'm gonna go. Okay, ode to Uncle Willie. He sat on a bar stool in order to drink. I poured the drink and set it down before him, treating the moment as if it were the most important time in both our lives. That is how I believe a good bartender should operate. Later, he became Willie, cocaine dealer, extraordinary, shot up in Nam, the Battle of Wade, a man without a country, burning bridges with reckless abandon. Recently, I moved from New York to San Francisco and often missed the all-night hang. So several times, Willie and I saw the sunrise through a bar window. When Willie wasn't in the bar, people would say things like, Poor guy was in Vietnam and he can't get his life together and this cocaine is cut to shit. One day I worked the morning shift and the chef cooked me ham and eggs. I left the steaming plate on the bar while I restocked the liquor bottles. There was a loud knock on the front door and I turned my head. Willie was there looking like Atlas after dropping the whole damn world. I went around the bar and let him in. Willie, what the hell are you doing so early? Now Willie's voice sounded like somebody talking in their sleep after swallowing a handful of lime. I couldn't get in bed, he said. I'm up in a room with Lucy on Lombard. He was up in a room with Lucy, I don't know. He stared at my breakfast on the bar and asked, "Who's that?" I told him to sit down and eat, that the chef would make me another. Willie sat on a stool and began shoveling food in his mouth. I moved some bottles to the back bar and in the mirror watched Willie's nose drip blood on the eggs, and he just kept eating. I didn't say a word. Now, the law of averages dealt Willie some serious trouble in San Francisco. I told Willie, move to New York. Nobody has anything for you here except misplaced pity. In New York, everyone is as fucked up as you are. I guess in the long run, he didn't have a choice. He caught the red eye to New York with no baggage. Manhattan and Willie embraced one another. He sold his wares and drank in bars till the sun came up, earning the nickname Uncle Willie. The last thing I heard about Willie, he was sitting on a bar in the village. Hey, Uncle Willie. Thanks, Uncle Willie. An old lady in a wheelchair with a shawl in her lap appeared on the street outside the bar. She couldn't seem to talk or move herself about, and she was pointing desperately at something. A bunch of drunks were looking around. What's she pointing at? Is she in trouble? Oh, is she in trouble? Is she in trouble? Is she in trouble? Willie came to the bar and immediately put great importance into where she was pointing. He told the crowd, he pointed across the street. She wants to go across the street. He bent over her and said, you want to go across the street? I'll push you across the street. He pushed her across the street and gently lifted her chair onto the sidewalk. He moved around the wheelchair and faced the woman, assuring her, you're okay now, you're across the street. The old lady pulled out a stun gun from underneath her shawl and shot Willie high in the chest. Willie passed out cold on the concrete. Some regulars carried him back in the bar and stacked him in the corner by the pinball machine. Later, Willie, hey, what are they supposed to do? Call the cops? If you pity Willie, move to San Francisco. Later, Willie came around, stumbled to the bar and ordered. His money was no good. Everybody was buying. Yo, I guess that old bag didn't want to go. How many times you been shot now, Uncle Willie? A toast to Uncle Willie. Glasses clinking. Hey, Uncle Willie, give me a quarter. Thanks, Uncle Willie. I'll catch you tomorrow. Thank you, Michael. All right, that's me. That's New York. Thank you for the anthology, George. All right, that's all right.
One more time for Peter Kaloftis. And he's still here, he hasn't, but it's a pleasure to welcome one of my oldest friends here. Tree, go back to 1980s. This guy that you might see with one of these yellow hard hats, local 638 steam fitter. So I don't know if the steam that comes up from underneath is something you're involved in, but he talks poetry from from the top of the places where construction's being done. A genuine working class New York City poet, Charlie Pellegrino.
Oh, man, how are you gonna follow Uncle Willie? I love that line too, about
Go to New York, everybody else is as fucked up as you are. That should be the sign when you get to New York. Welcome to New York. Everybody's as fucked up as you are. Thank you, George, for including me in this great anthology and inviting me tonight to read with all these great poets and a really good flavor of New York, the ghost of New York. Here's a poem about a place where George and I drank a few times. We had readings there. This is the ghost of Jack Kerouac was in this place, the bar on North Port, Long Island, where he drank. And they say that, he come over with a roll of nickels his mom gave him for the day to drink. And there's a bit of a mess over here, but this is about the characters from that same place. If you've ever been in the cinders, you'll know this. The incubation, the chrysalis is the crust of the biscuit, it's been said. Our favorite bar is back, a phoenix on dog feet. We come to lap at its door, which still opens in, duck in for a few and sometimes too many on a Saturday or the rest of the days of the end with a Y. It's the day drinks for the best stories. Live music tugs the locals and the day trippers alike. The hot moms and their Audis slide by, come in to slum it, drink on bitterness and drunk on tequila, to get their fill of slick intentions with the remaining clamors, leftover daytime celebrities, and world-weary bartenders. I'm surprised to see Dave in a crowd later in the day, amongst a bunch of aging punkers. The scofflaws are playing tonight, pushing that gone electric skinhead Jamaican beat. And once again, I'm reminded that Dave is the Buddha. And when I tell him, Dave, you are the Buddha, he just kind of gives me this, shucks, like some kind of Midwestern farmhand. 2, the work. Dave washes down the trowels. With a half-lit cigarette in his mouth, he is trying to relight it, and it melts in his wet hand, and he throws it to the wind. It was a bug in the wind. It is a bug plus danger, and it whips across the yard. There is defeat in his breath as he slicks back his hair, and what's left of it says to me, I ain't getting any younger, pal. And with a grin, and what's left of it, Dave washes down the tools, Dave's to with focus, and washing the haze, past the bars and the big houses, up the hills, back of town, days laid out edge on edge, like every tile he ever set. No whiskey until we grab. This one is called Days of Our Lives. Monday is an ex-wife whose dog you still walk for some forsaken reason, or you take in her mail, or you take in her garbage. And when you collect the mail, sometimes you deliver it and sometimes you don't. Tuesday is your kid's homework. You stare at the math, it's hypnotic. The math has changed, but you haven't. Wednesday is the way you put on your pants. Mechanical fidelity, lax and simple, a bicycle in the rain. Thursday is a pause, a waiting. In closing, it is eating cold, although you know you should not. Friday is an escape artist, a Mardi Gras. Friday is the silk tie on the dashboard. It is the time of doorknob. Saturday is a lover who wakes you and makes you eggs and sausages. She is a clear sky, the sun in your face. Then she puts on a dress, you know, that one that brings the devil out, and even the stars kneel before her. Sunday is a baseball game with your dad. Your team is up by 2 runs. You gotta leave in the 7th inning. On the way home, you listen on the radio. Then Monday comes, and you gotta walk that dog again. All right, I'll keep going. I got a couple, right? Is that all right? Yeah. All right. Authorized distributor tonight. A red sun is low and steady, sinking slow, indigo frost on the horizon, and I am the authorized distributor of the night. In the home of evening leaves, cicada, and the limbs of women, what brings to pass? Excuse me, what talent brings the passive day? Who stops the sun from screaming and shakes loose the parts of darkness? It is me. I am the authorized distributor of the night. Shut your eyes and wait. I am the sacrificial benefactor, the power generation factor of dark pleasure. Night, like agents of sleep, will come to you, slip up and whisper in your ear. Car crash, oblivion, fall, live, nation. Go on, sleepyheads. Try to fight the dream of endless tunnel, 101 hungry lakes, milkshakes and murder, Vegas windshields. I am the authorized distributor of night. From now on, you will obey your slumber steeped in cold, lush colors. The dream of your lover's body, dark, succulent, marked now by the want of your heart. I am the authorized distributor of night, and tonight you will dream of doll heads, surface tension. I am the sacrificial benefactor, and tonight you will dream of magnolias. And I got a short one, and then I got one more. This is the one from the anthology, and that's it. Okay. This takes place in the original Trade Center of the Twin Towers that went down, and as George mentioned, that's my trade, steam fitter. We did a big piping job in there, and this is about my time there. After the first bombing, we had a renovation job, 102nd floor, 600-pound test on the chilled water. Even the hangars leaked. 10 days on repeat. 10-hour days on repeat. More wrench than real life. Sparks are flying. There may be no peace in this chaos, kid, but there's plenty of payout for sure. High above New York skyline, among the men who forgot fear. There were the Jimmies, the Richies, Mac, Billy, Sal, Mutt, and Jeff, side mouth, Sing, and Bucky with small hands. The way he caught his mustache when he told a story. Every day there was a story. Beeline to the commuter bar, lap at the mahogany. That barmaid just didn't know what hit her. Back when it was sativa at 6 and the largest coffee known to man. Shake out the cobwebs, tighten up the loose ends. Old timers drinking tins before 7, telling us they never did drugs in their lives. High above Manhattan's high bedrock with iron pie. You could buy all your electronics here, kid. Vacuum tubes as far as the eye could see. Thousands of stalls. TV pots too. A place and time. A time forgotten. Commerce towering over the battery. To the north, you could see all the way to Germantown. To the east, the ghost breweries of Brooklyn. Industrial waterfront Queens. To the west, Jersey. Don't recall how it started, but the first lot lines appeared at coffee break. There were 1 or 2. By evening, the long, narrow windows were full of all permanent marker. Cityscape with Sharpie. Times were different then, kid. We did all the cold weather flats way after the Dodgers left, before the Chinese bought up the west side. With every turn of the pen, this one, the one had worked on the Upper East Side, the other, their father had been. Look there past Chelsea. We were in the Chrysler building, every boiler, every chiller, our fathers, their fathers, enough pipe to take you all the way to the moon, all the bedrock all that this bedrock would hold. Once there were gas holders. No one sees the city like we do. Thank you.
Right, thank you all for coming to join us. One more time, put your hands together for the second half of us. Charlie Calabria, Peter Carlockett, Jack George, Julio Razan, Christine Tim, right? And I'll reintroduce our host for today from this distinguished institution. Please welcome back. George Gaga.
Thank you, George. I have not much else to add, except thank you again to all the poets who came in. And I just would like to offer, maybe if he's willing to do it, one valedictory poem by an alumnus of City Tech, a poet who started out at the Bowery Poetry Club back in, I don't know, 2003 or 4. Can I get one poem from you, Abe, to send us on our way? All right. This is Abe Benjamin.
Y'all can hear me?
Yes.
Oh, wow. So much nostalgia up in there. It's crazy. All right. I'm doing this a lot lately. It's actually from one of my books that I do have out called Spoken Soldier. It's on Amazon, and I have 2 other books out. You can holler at me about them afterwards. But this is the title piece, that book. They barely make too many spoken soldiers like me that spit Niagara pools us alive for mine to swim in God's knowledge anymore. And you think that a brother like me with so-called prophetic thoughts possessed be able to foresee peace of mind ahead, but lone walks on black satin nightfalls, I wonder. How can I spit pieces that crowds don't mind when I lack enough to keep mine together? I mean, y'all don't know what I'm thinking half the time. With every rhyme that leaves my soul machine lips, I'm stitching my mind back together, not just yours. I'm sealing and soothing my heart together again, not just yours. I'm building back my soul with needles for teeth, and this tongue is just the thread used to proceed. And what you see is a jarhead, born in a never-ending war called life. Came out the womb with battle scars of cursed blessings on my soul God couldn't see, while demon whispers said it won't show until your last breath, like battle spouse news reports on Fox when it's too late. But spoken word audiences don't know this, though far from ignorant, who here right now doesn't feel there's a problem. So maybe it was a sign when I got 90s, hundreds, A's and B's in the 5th grade for articulating, stimulating vocab and weapons of choice was determined. Maybe when daddy got hit by a car accidentally RBIing him was a sign I had to write about. Maybe falling sanitation been at 10 years old full of dirty 2x4s and rusty nails. Reality and survival was enough for me to get the point. This vessel speaking may not be internationally known on the microphone, but its mission's here to make minds here tonight these words home. Because I got Brooklyn in my blood, only stages be my residence. Turn venues into living rooms, because right here at 285 J Street is the place for the best brown stew. Healing food for thought, literary artillery. We all need to realize self-worth has a priceless currency. See, my epiphany has come to me. See, I was never actually shy when growing up. A higher power just decided to overload my mental ammunition, left the safety on because I wasn't ready to pull the trigger and shoot hollow tips, pennies for thoughts, paying hungry homeless dollar bills, the bill blocks to bring back our broken bread dreams of salvation, self-esteem to believe. So when the mic is before me, my poems, they be remedy shots. You move mine and all your scars, one at a time. Peace. Thank y'all for listening.
One more time, thank you again, everyone, and we've gone over time. I genuinely appreciate everybody, sticking around for 2 hours and 15 minutes. It felt like 5 minutes, but thanks again, and hope to see you all at another poetry event soon here. Oh, and a special thanks to Michael Smith.
Mm.